Hello, everyone. It is Aunt Carla, and I want to welcome you to the You Are the Spell podcast. And I'm very excited because today I have Astrea Taylor, witchy author extraordinaire, and she's my first, I guess, official um, interview since I'm, getting this podcast off the ground. And I wasn't even thinking I was going to do interviews just yet. I didn't know if I was quote unquote ready, but she has a new book out, and she was, she's on the Australia. You are on like kind of like your book tour, the virtual book tour. So when
Yes.
the opportunity came available, I was like, oh well, okay, sure, yes, I'll do that. So I'm going to read her bio really quickly, and then Australia, I would like you to introduce yourself as well, and I have some questions, and then we'll get into it. So Astrea Taylor is an eclectic pagan witch with over 2.5 decades of experience in the witching world. She's the author of Air Magic, Intuitive Witchcraft, and Inspiring Creativity Through Magic. And she's also the co-author of Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods. She has a bachelor's degree in science from Antioch, which is it?
Antioch. Yep.
Antioch College, and a master's degree in environmental sciences from Wright State University, which informs her scientific takes. I can read her scientific takes on spirituality, which I'm going to ask her about. And in her spare time, she presents workshops and rituals online and at festivals across the country. And occasionally she blogs as Starlight Witch on Patheos Pagan. So you can find out more about her and get a signed book or two on her webpage, AstreaTaylor.com. So welcome, Astrea.
Thank you so
Hello.
much. I
Tell us
am
about
so
yourself.
honored. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Like I've been listening to it forever. And then to be the first guest, I just love that. And we're friends, in
Yeah.
interworlds, internet worlds. So I was like, yeah, I want to be on your podcast. That would be amazing.
Yay.
I have over 2.5 decades in the witching world, and I just love what I do. I come from a place of I used to be the person who went to all the workshops and took all the classes, and now I'm the one who's giving those workshops and classes. I'm the one who's writing the books. So it's come full circle, and I really feel like I should pay it forth, especially with the messages that I have. Like, your witchcraft is valid. You have personal gnosis, and it's important too. You're a spiritual authority too. Things like
Yes.
that, that we don't really hear enough of, I think, in our community sometimes.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And one of my first questions I have for you, and they're all jumbled out, but I'm always really curious, how did you find magic, or how did magic find you?
Okay, well, I always like to say that the other world really came for me when I was a child.
Oh.
A spooky childhood. And I was raised by a single mom who studied some witchcraft and was more of a new age practitioner, kind of like on the hippie side, but not the Grateful Dead, more like the co-op side, health foods,
Yeah.
nature kind of stuff. So I was really encouraged to just be myself and everything, and had some weird meditation practices growing up. But I found it very easy to enter trance states, and I always would just slip into them, go into these like dreamlike reveries. And
Mm.
the weirdest things would happen sometimes in my household. And I swear, like, I was not dreaming. These weird things really happened. And then I had an out of body experience at a young age as well. And that really jolted me and shifted my perspective. And at a time when I should have been thinking about, maybe wearing makeup and, dating people and being fashionable, I was delving into books on the occult to try to understand my experience more. And it really moved me. It touched me in a really profound way. And I don't know if without that I would have been the same person, but I realized, like, that there is this other world. We do exist outside of our bodies. Energy is real and spirits are real. So yeah, it was a whole eye-opening experience, and I just kept going in that direction. And we found a a good place to do that. It was kind of like a Unitarian church, but it's called Unity. It's a legacy spiritualist church. So I grew
Oh.
up in that, with a lot of meditation, a lot of power of conscious thought, and affirmations, which is basically intention. And then when that was over, I was like, I became 18 years old. I was like, okay, time to go to witchcraft and paganism.
Now, when you say unity, is that like unity, like new thought unity?
I think so. Yeah. Based out of,
'Cause,
Colorado. Is that
oh,
Missouri?
it
It's
might be
Missouri.
Missouri. It might be the one I'm thinking of because I also spent time, and I'm still officially, I guess, a member in Unity. But everything is very, it's very, what's the word? It all resonates. Like it's all compatible. The
Yeah.
kind of, but yeah, I'm sure what we're doing is a little. We've kind of moved on.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that was a good starting place.
It's like they're like they're like way more progressive than Christianity.
Yes.
Like we didn't even have Bibles, and we
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
Father God.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
the one. That's the
yeah,
one.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And it was founded by the Fillmores and
Yes,
spiritual.
that's them. Yes.
Uh-huh. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Course in Miracles.
Yes.
Hearing,
Yeah. That was, I
uh,
mean, and that was actually a great foundation piece because it's like for New Thought, it's about that you can create your own reality.
yes,
So that was definitely a great springboard for people who might end up going into witchcraft or maybe are already doing it like on the outside. Because actually, I know people who attended Unity, but it was also because they were magical people. I mean, they were
mhm,
spiritual practitioners, but it was also at least a place where they could get kind of that fellowship, that community that they might not have had otherwise. So, you
yeah,
know, so at least it was
yeah.
compatible.
It's so cool that you come from that same background. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like meeting a family member, I feel
It
like.
is. That's I'm like, oh my God, we're like cousins. And we went. I went in New York City. So the cool
Okay.
thing about that particular congregation, and because like it used to be like something something spiritual church, but we voted the word church out of the name. So just like so, it was Unity Center. So that tells you right there.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
also because it was in New York City, the congregation was mostly like actors and dancers and singers, so like all
Mm,
performers, and the music was fantastic. But let's talk
mhm.
about you. Yeah, but
Okay,
you get
well,
the idea.
one more
You get the
thing.
idea. What?
Oprah went to my boyfriend's church in Evanston, Chicago. She went to
Oh,
Unity. Yeah. So, I mean,
see?
along the same line of actors, like just famous people
Yeah, yeah.
in the
It's
world.
just because it's very empowering, it's very inspiring, and everyone is very supportive. If
Mhm.
you go to certain places, you're like, "Oh, I want to be an actress." They're like, "Oh, please." Whereas here, like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'll pray for you." Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it is. Yes,
Yeah.
speak it into life. Yeah,
Yeah. Keep talking.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess this segues pretty well into we're talking about creativity,
Mhm.
and your latest book is inspiring creativity through magic, which is
Mhm.
amazing, especially for me because the timing is perfect. Because like I have recently gotten into like my own form of art magic, and
Mhm.
instead of and creating my own sigils, but kind of using like sacred geometry and also when you sent me the pre-publication version of the book, I had started working on my own book, so it was like, oh my God, this is great. So
Yeah.
to be able to talk to you about creativity and just all the other cool things you do is like really amazing. So, well, before I ask questions, I just have I got a fangirl just a little bit
Okay.
because I have, let's see, I already have Intuitive Witchcraft and Air Magic, and they're just amazing books, and they're just chock full of information. And we're friends, but before we were friends, I was like, this person is so cool, and she knows cool things, and I was
Aw.
just like, wow. So to get to know you and just to receive um, just just to get to pick your brain, about various topics is really cool. So everyone
Oh.
should have an Astrea in their life.
The feeling is mutual. I just love your feed and your content. It's just so inspiring to me. You're so prolific, and I'm like, yes, get
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thank you. So I'm curious. So when it came to you, now talk about prolific. You're also prolific because you've written all of these books, not to mention like other fiction books that I know that you've also written.
Mhm.
So when it came, whose idea was it for you to write a book on creativity and magic? Was it the publisher came to you, or did you come to the publisher? Like, how did that come up?
Well, there was a lull in my writing, and my co-author for the Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods book, he was kind of taking a break, and I had been putting all this work in, and I realized, like, I actually want to take a break too from that. And so this other book had been gnawing at me for a long time because I realized that there wasn't a book out there about working with creative spirits in a magical way for your arts and for inspiration, for expression, for creativity. And I put the proposal in, late 2020, and it got picked up like that by Llewellyn. And unfortunately, I had to finish the other book first before I could finish this one. And now here we are, like 3 years later. But it's finished now. It just got published, so it's I'm really happy with it, and I think it's everything that I wanted it to be.
Wow, I'm really happy to hear that. So the things that I really love was just the way you approach creativity via your magic. So for example, your use of elements, like the chapter on fire, I felt like I was really into that. I mean, I
Mhm.
like all of them, but I think I'm a rising Sagittarius. I'm a Capricorn with the rising with rising fire. So um, the part about like using competition or envy to fuel your practice.
Mhm.
Would you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I just feel like everyone has their own take on something. You could be tempted to say that, oh, Estrella wrote a book about creativity, nobody else can. But that's not the case. There are a lot of books out there about creativity, and obviously before I was around as well. And everyone has their own insights about things. And I think the world needs to hear all of these different insights from different people. And, we all have a different message, and people receive it differently. So first of all, I think that you shouldn't look at, like, it's been done before as don't do it. You still have your own voice, and it's
Yes.
unique and valuable. And the second thing is, there's a little bit of friction you can use with, like, oh, you're like, oh, I see them succeeding over there, and I wish them well. And I also think that, I could, we could have some dynamism between the two of us. And whether it's public or private or whatnot, I think you can kind of like play with that a little bit and say that, if they did it, I can probably do it too, or I could have the chance to do it too, possibly. And, just put it out there. Because, you can be inspired by all kinds of things. It can be something that's like, oh, like the perfect thought, dream, apple, song, whatever. Or it could be the fact that um, I wrote intuitive witchcraft because someone told me that I was doing everything wrong. I
Ah.
think that's where that came from. The whole nugget of it is like, he said, you got to be in a tradition. If you're not in a tradition, it's as dangerous as if you're running around with a scalpel
Ah.
performing surgery on people. And I said,
Hmm.
I just got up from his workshop and left. And I
Good.
said, now I have to write this book. I was on the fence about it before, but to prove him wrong was like, I was going to get so much joy from that. And he was writing his own book, and he is
I'm
not.
sorry.
my, he apologized to my watch. Apologize for him.
See, I know. Timing. Do 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 do. I
I
heard
mean,
that.
we
I
are
was a
in like a time like that right now, don't you think?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's a lot
Messages are
going
coming
on.
through. Yeah,
The other
yeah.
day, I was on a podcast, and my ring light went all the way up. Like right now, it's on like 7% because it's really bright. It
Oh,
was just like boom. And I was like, okay,
and then there was the light.
the
There was
message.
light.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. See. Okay. You made your point. He felt
yeah,
that. He's
he's like,
apologizing.
sorry. It'll be all right. Don't worry. I got over it.
So, and that reminds me of like when I first moved to New York City. Like I'm in the suburbs now, but when I first moved to New York City, I was from Florida, and I was definitely feeling very uh competition and envy, and that town kind of, I mean, because and there's this pressure to perform and to succeed and pay your rent, all of these things.
Mhm.
And I remember when I first moved to New York, I felt like I imagined that I had an invisible nemesis. And
Oh,
so, yeah, that's how I saw it. So it's really interesting to have this conversation. And I remember thinking, there's an invisible nemesis. I have a nemesis somewhere in this city. And all those times, like if I felt like I was kind of slacking off, that little voice inside me is like, well, your nemesis is on the other side of town, and she's writing a song right now. So what are you gonna do? And that would really kick me in the ass. It would. And I was like, okay, so like, no, you can't sleep in late. No, you can't, because your nemesis, she is doing this, that, and the other thing. And
yeah.
wouldn't you know, I eventually met this nemesis, or who
Oh,
I would
really?
consider, yeah. And she ended up being like a really good friend. We were best friends at one time. And I, before we became friends, like she put out like her first CD. And this was back in the days of CDs, people. I'm dating
Oh,
myself.
yeah.
And she had a CD, and we were doing it, we had to self-fund ourselves at this time, so I was so like, oh my god, she's got this great CD and I don't have anything. Oh, and then I somehow got right within my brain, and I was like, okay, if she can do it, that means
Mhm.
that I can do it.
Yeah.
And that was actually a really helpful thing. I think Julia Cameron in
The
The
artist
Artist's
way.
Way, she says
Yeah.
that jealousy is a map because it shows you what you want. It shows
Mhm.
you it, like it's tapping you. So I was able to use my she wasn't a friend of me. Like I really liked her. I mean, I really cared for this person. And but in the back of my mind, I was like, I need to get my CD together. Like I need to just get my shit together, because it's driving me crazy that it, but I worked with her producer, for example, and then I came up with my own, fantastic CD. So, but it was like I had to, meeting her and seeing that, oh my god, yeah, that nemesis that you speak of, she really does exist. And she's not thinking that way of me, she's not, she's just like, oh, that's Carla, she's so nice, but in my mind I'm like, I have to do this. But that energy helped propel me forward, and I have no
Mhm.
regrets. So there you go.
Yeah, it's healthy competition, it's a
Totally.
good thing. And I think there's room for all of us too. I don't think that there's, just one CD out there in the world. Right?
Exactly. I mean, we each
Yeah.
have our own, lens, or filter. Like, you
Right.
experience life however you experience it, and we can watch the same exact event, but based on your past,
Right.
the date, way you're feeling this particular day, it's gonna,
Mhm.
your gnosis, it's gonna come out totally different, or it'll never be exactly the same as mine, and that's fine. That's the way it should be, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, like our takeaways are all so valuable. And that's one thing I love about social media is like that we do get to share those with other people and inspire them in that way too.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So also, I wanted to ask you about, how do you like to call upon the creative spirit, that occult helper? And this might be a two-part question. And do you do rituals when you create new projects?
Yes. So I'll answer the second question first. I do rituals when I create new projects. I have like the whole brainstorming method that I use. It's in the book.
Hmm.
Basically for anything, if I'm going to give a workshop, I make a brainstorm. I get into this like meditative space. It's so funny. Like right before ritual, I do the same thing. Like I take a shower, I put some fresh clothes on, like I anoint myself with some oil, put some music on, some incense on, light a candle, get some tea going or some coffee, and then, associate with one of my other correspondences. Usually soda light helps me express myself. And I will just get to work and just explore and daydream and just be lost in this like beautiful airy wonderland. And that's basically my ritual for starting any new project, even if it's like fire dancing. I do
Mm,
that for some of my
yes.
performances. Like, what does this song make me feel? What colors am I feeling? Like, what kind of face am I going to be wearing? What's the attitude? What's the deity that's coming through? Um, and so when it comes time to call forth the creative spirit, sometimes I actually, do say, okay, Crow, let's get to work. Let's do this. Are you ready? Let's do this. Like they'll dance with them. But oftentimes, I don't call him necessarily my creative spirit Crow. I just show up and I get into the work and he appears. And that's
Mm,
how we just started to do everything in the first place. I know some people call upon their creative spirit all the time. For me, I don't know if it's as important for this little guy. He's just like, when you're in place and you have your fingers on the keyboard, that's when I'm going to show up, not when you call for me.
right. When you're, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm busy.
You got to mean it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I love your description of the genius and how the original, like people would give birthday parties for their genius. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that's an ancient belief in Rome and maybe Greece too. I'm not 100% sure about Greece, but that was a belief that they would they would celebrate the spiritual companion of the person, and it was a benefactor. It was a spirit of luck and fate, and so they thought by celebrating that it was born on the same time, the same like astrological web that is like strewn across our bodies is strewn across that spirit as well. So it's like the spiritual helper to help that person realize their fate. And if you think of a party and all the food and drink and everything, it's like offerings, the music,
Yeah.
the incense. It's like an offering, a bunch of offerings for the spirit to help that person realize their success.
Ah, so it's not just for the person, but for their genius, for their spiritual helper.
Yes.
Um, let's see. I also am really curious about your day job. You're a scientist.
Yes, I am.
How do you balance, or how do you, yeah, how do you balance your magician self with your scientist self? And I'm sure there are people who are like, how can you even believe in anything because you're a scientist? Like,
Yeah.
how does that make sense for you?
I do say that. Well, you think back in ancient days, ancient cultures, a lot of the scientific minded people were also into the spiritual stuff. Some of the strongest pagan philosophers were also scientists at the same time. And like I think of science in, the way that I, view the world and how it operates and stuff. It is kind of like the study of nature, and it's so close to witchcraft and magic, wherein we take our will and put it into the world instead of just observing things. So I
Mm,
do have like a very rational side of myself for my day job, but then I also have this very strong, very creative other part of me that wants to be expressed as well. And it's not always easy to balance the two because my brain can get tired sometimes. But I do incorporate periods of rest. So I am sure to like replenish myself. I eat good food. I try to exercise and, take care of myself because I feel very passionate about writing, and I wouldn't want to give it up just because I have a day job that is a little bit more linear minded and does take up a lot of my brain juice.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Because I'm sure, well, I mean, I imagine any kind of question I have, other people want to know it too. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that sounds very arrogant, but I mean, just like you're such a fascinating person. So I figure I'm not the only person who wants to know that. One last question, because I know we won't, I don't want to keep you too long, but I, something you had read, something you had mentioned, I don't know if it was like in a comment or a group chat or something. You had mentioned that you didn't necessarily have, like growing up, there wasn't necessarily like a lot of money to do certain things magically or study certain things, but maybe someone took you under their wing.
Yeah.
So how, so if someone is listening today and they're thinking, well, I can't do this, I can't follow this path because I don't have A, B, and C. How how did you get that information that you needed? And I guess, yeah, how did you do it?
Mhm. Well, I think from a young age, I understood spells, incantations. I think those are easy. We can all kind of understand that when we're making the mud pies in the backyard or whatever.
Hmm.
um, we're like, I'm a witch, I'm making this, and it's a potion or whatever. It comes naturally to kids, right?
Right?
I
Yeah.
think ritual structure is a little bit harder to learn, but it's not really that hard. There's a certain structure to it. And that's what I learned from the people who taught me these things. I basically learned how they did ritual, and I adapted that for myself. And I'm not always a ritualistic person. I do it on special occasions when I really am feeling the desire or the need for that kind of stuff. I like both, rituals and spells, but adapting things to my own needs and my own views, it was so freeing to me because these people would come in with these correspondence books and they'd be like, oh, what does bay leaf correspond to? I can't remember. What is lavender? And I'm like, what does it correspond to for you? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, I know exactly how I feel about them. So
Mm.
that was my biggest takeaways. I had a bit of confidence to make things up and to not judge myself harshly for that kind of stuff. And uh in the end, if it works for you, it's great. And I will say a little bit about science too. If you look at pharmaceutical studies or biological studies, the results are always like 30% success is a success rate for them. So that means that 70% of their trials have failed and they think that's okay. And
Wow.
really, to me, that speaks to the fact that we are all so different, so biologically different. We react to things in different ways, like we were talking about earlier, and we're not always going to come up with the same result, even though, we're similar organisms. We're complex people with complex spirits. And I want to do justice. I want to acknowledge that and pay respect to that because it's a beautiful thing. And to say, oh, you all have to be in a coven, you all have to use this book of correspondences, bay leaf has to be fire, to everybody, things like that. It's hurtful because there's a, a step of intelligence and there's a price to some of that intelligence, whether it's
Mm.
time or money or ability to read, someone who may be dyslexic or something,
Right.
um, or can't read, or, if it's in another language that they can't read. So I don't want anyone to feel bad about that. And, really, when it comes down to it, you can have your own meanings for different things and use whatever structure works for you, for your magic. And I'm here to say, like, I've been doing this my whole life and it works for me. Like I really love and appreciate how far I've come with it. And humility goes a long way with that too, I think. Uh so I'm really thankful for all of that and everything that's taught me.
Yeah. So one last question. When you were just starting, you were talking about like almost like rejecting the book of correspondences or things that other people have said. Where do you think that confidence came from? What made you say, well, I know this, yeah, where does it come from, do you think?
Um, so yeah, I couldn't afford the book of correspondences like we were talking about. There
Yeah.
was the monetary thing. There was a time crunch. And then my mom always encouraged me to just be myself. And I remember one time I came home and I was like, Mom, they say I'm weird. And she was like, you should tell them thank you. And I did. I started telling them thank you. And they were like, I don't even know what to do with you now. But I just realized like, oh man, I don't want to be friends with them, and I just got with some other weird people and we were friends, and I loved all kinds of people unless they were mean to me, and then I was like, yeah, you're not in my group.
All
this
right.
this is the nice weird kid group. So I revel in that, and I feel like self-confidence is something that a lot of people seek out. Really, I think it's, having that ability to trust yourself, to go within and to look within for the answers, look within and just trust what you're hearing, trust what comes up, trust that you're a spiritual authority that you can listen to that probably knows more about your situation than anyone else. I mean, we all need external help from time to time, but that the answers really are inside. I think our intuition talks to us in a pretty loud voice most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Astrea, for making the time, to come on the podcast. Is there anything else you would like to let the listeners know before we go?
No, I just want to repeat that your witchcraft and your magical practices are valid and you go get them. And
Right.
thank you so much for having me on the show. What an honor.
Oh, you are so welcome. So that is wrapping up today's podcast, and I hope that you enjoyed the little nuggets that we got from Astrea. And just remember, you're magical and you're magic.